So we recently ran a free webinar all about how to get more of your properties under offer. Now, before anybody joins the webinar, when they're signing up, we ask them a really valuable question. What is the biggest thing you are struggling with in your business at the moment, and how can we help with that? So in today's video, we're going to go through those questions that people are struggling with in their estate agency business, because I'm willing to bet if they're struggling with it, then you potentially might be struggling with it as well. Okay, so question number one, how do we get sellers to accept your valuation of the property? The answer is actually in the question, that one. It's your valuation. The way to get anybody to think anything is a great idea is to get them to have the idea in the first place. So any ideas that I come up with, I think are great ideas. Anyone tells me an idea, I have to kind of think about it and wonder whether it's the right thing to do or not. So in that answer, describes exactly how we need to pitch our valuation. So instead of you coming on an appointment and evaluation in front of a homeowner and simply saying, I've done my research, I've done my comparables, this is what I think the property is worth, what you're far better off doing is actually saying to the homeowner, look, you guys have lived here for the last 30 years. Let's work through the comparables together and find a figure where we think the property sits at the moment. Does that sound good? Everyone is going to bite your arm off at the opportunity of being involved in that process. So I would put a little bit of an asterisk in here. It isn't going to change the valuation of the property. The figure that you thought already it was worth 400 grand before you turned up, you're still going to have that exact figure in mind, and that's what you're going to be pushing for with the property. But instead of you just standing there and sort of preaching to the homeowner saying, I just turned up like property Jesus and this is what I think your property is worth, instead we're having them be involved in part of the process. Now I would go through and say, right, well, I've got a load of comparables about your property. Some of it I think a little bit too high for where your property sits at the moment. Some I think a little bit too low for where your property sits at the moment. So let's look at some of the ones first of all. And eventually you'll go through each of the comparables. Where do you think your property sits compared to that one? Oh, great. Well, they've got a nicer kitchen, or we've got a bigger garden, or they've got the driveway. We haven't got the driveway. And you'll basically end up going, well, it feels to me like your property is sitting between these two properties at around the £400,000 mark. But now they've bought into that part of the process because they've been kind of part team valuation of getting that figure for their property. So now when any other agents down the line might come forward and go, I think the property is worth 425, 450, for example, the old classic overvaluation, they've actually worked with you to achieve that figure. They've worked it out with you, so they are bought into that figure. So if anyone else comes along and says, I think it's worth 425 or 450, they're actually disagreeing with a figure that the vendor worked out themselves, along with your help, obviously. So what we're effectively doing here is turning the valuation from me standing here preaching to you to more of a consultative deal where I bring forward my information to the table, you bring forward your information to the table, and together we work it out as a team and a partnership. So that is how you get a vendor to align with your valuation. Get them to work it out in the same way you've worked it out as well. Okay, so question number two, how much time should we spend on social media every week? Well, this depends on how you phrase this. Scrolling yourself to death on social media, I would minimize as much as you possibly can do. Outside of work hours, you can do what you like, obviously, but in work hours, you should see yourself as a producer of content rather than the consumer of content. So the thing I would judge any business on is how much content you put out and the quality of that content as well. So if you're spending 5 hours scrolling social media every day and posting for 10 minutes, you've probably got things the wrong way around. Right, so if you're going, right, Chris, I'm spending an hour on social media every single day, but off the back of that hour, I'm getting all my posts scheduled for that week and I've got some videos recorded. I'm like, great, amazing. Spend more time on social media, the better, because you're being really productive at that time. So how much time should you spend kind of just browsing social media during work hours? I'm in your lunch break if you're unlucky, but how much time should you actually spend producing content? If it's going well, it's pushing in the right direction, great, the sky is literally the limit. This is a good one. I get asked this one all the time. How do you generate and maintain a steady flow of qualified leads? If you're having this problem in your business where some months you're doing really well and you get lots of properties on the market, lots of valuations, lots of sales, etc., and then you're like, oh my God, I've got nothing coming on. I've got panic in my business. I now need to go out door knocking and leaflet dropping. This one is just for you. So what is happening here is effectively your lead generation methods are trickling downstream. Unfortunately, in a estate agency, it isn't instant. It takes about 90 days to feel the full effect. So if I stop lead generation in the estate agency business today, probably for the next 30, 60, 90 days, it will be okay. There would be no dramas at all. But in 60, 90, 120 days time, I would start to feel the effects and things would start slowing down in my business. So what the issue is here is a lack of regular lead generation. Now, what I'd recommend that even if you're really busy and absolutely manic, I would recommend doing about 90 minutes worth of lead generation every single day. Now, when you first start and you've got lots of time on your hands, that's not a problem. When you get busier, it becomes a bigger and bigger issue. So therefore, to where you might look at things like outsourcing, for example, or go, what can I get the biggest bang for my buck with the minimum time spending on it? So this might be outsourcing letters, for example. It might be getting a leaflet dropper. It might be getting a negotiator on board, whatever it may be. But that number needs to be there every single day. If you level out your lead generation process, you'll level out also your instruction process and your sales process and your completion process as much as you possibly can do, giving you a business which is gently growing as opposed to sort of wig-wagging and up and down over time, which of course is very stressful for you as a business owner. Right, how to get a buyer to commit. So I'm a big believer that no one is committed to really anything until they start putting their hand in their pocket. As soon as someone goes, right, there's 20 quid, 100 quid, £1,000, £10,000, whatever the number is, they are committed to that deal. And it isn't necessarily about the monetary amount. People just don't want to lose money. So if anyone commits and says, right, there's £100, I think, well, they're not going to set fire to £100. So clearly they must be interested in taking the next step. Now, if I was going to buy a property and I was really keen to go for it, and someone said to me, I need your solicitor details, I need to make sure they've got money on account, I need to make sure they're instructed, I would be on it like no one's business. I'd be emailing, I'd be phoning that solicitor, I'd be emailing the request across to you, I'll be showing you I'm doing every single thing I can do to get that instructed. So I've always got a little bit of a red flashy light when people don't do that in the same sort of timescale that I would do. One really good way to make sure people, they feel like they want to act quickly and they need to act quickly is to make them feel like they've got a bargain. If people feel like they've got some sort of deal, then they will act quicker because they want to secure it before anybody else takes it. Let's say, for example, a property's been on the market for the last 12 months and people slowly negotiate backwards and forwards and eventually they get it under offer and that's all fine. I would look at that buyer and go, okay, they probably know it's been on the market for the last 12 months. They know that with the homeowners, it's probably these buyers or nothing. So they have all the power on their side of the equation. And what a really good thing to say to people is when they got an offer agreed, because no one really quite knows whether they've done well or badly in a negotiation. You as an agent, you do, because you've got a good idea what the homeowner will accept and you've got a good idea what the buyer will pay. So therefore, you've got a good idea who's going to flex the most and where you think the price actually should be, whether they've got a good deal or a bad deal. But as a buyer, you've really got no idea whether you've got a fantastic deal or you've been completely dragged over the coals. Sort of really nice thing to do is at the end of a negotiation is to say, great, just that you know your offer has been accepted at £400,000. Just to let you know, I think you did really well in that negotiation. I didn't actually think they would go down to £400,000. So I think I actually played a really smart game there. I think you've done a really good job of getting that agreed at £400,000. Really well done to you. By the way, to get it secured, I need solicitor details from you as soon as we possibly can do. I need company name, I need company details, etc. So just with that one little line to say, actually, I think you pulled out for a bit of a blinder here. I think you've done really well on negotiation. People are far more likely to go, I've got a deal. I've got a bargain. I secure this as quickly as I possibly can do and get my solicitor details over and get them instructed as soon as we possibly can do. Right, so next one, how to reduce asking prices without losing client trust. Okay, so I would think to myself in this situation, what do I want from the agent I'm working with? Or really, one of the biggest things, I want them to work as hard as they possibly can do to try and get my property sold. I want them to be pulling out every stop they've got in front of them to try and get my property under offer. I can't really ask much more than that. Yes, communication is important. Yes, service is important. Fee in some cases is important. But ultimately, if they're doing everything they can to try and get my property sold and communicating that to me, then that's a big part of that deal. So how to change the price of a property without losing that relationship with the homeowner is to simply get across how much you are working and how hard you're trying to get that property sold. I'd recommend once a week, pick up the phone to your homeowners if you've got no action on the property to say, this is what's been going on, this is your update. Now, the biggest part of that conversation is getting across exactly how hard you have been working to try and sell their property. To start off with, you might say, great, it's live on the portals, it's looking good, I can see the right move click-through rate is appearing already. Just that you know, this is what I'm doing in the background. I've spoken to this person, I've spoken to that person, I've put it in a window, I've matched it out, I've spoken to our database about it, I've called 15 people about it. They're like, oh my goodness, Chris, you've done so much to try and get our property sold. Really appreciate it. Update a week later. Again, you're getting across to say, I've done this, I'm chasing that, I've just changed all of the pictures, I'm boosting that social media post, by the way, I'm doing. So when it comes to kind of week 3, week 4, when you're looking to change the price of property, should it not have sold, you've spent the last 2-3 weeks explaining to them exactly what you've been doing. So therefore they can't just wave at you and go, hang on, Chris, you've done nothing over the last 2-3 weeks. Because you're like, that's specifically what I've been explaining to you since we've started working together, how hard I'm working to try and sell your property. If you're really good at your daily communication every single week, getting across how hard you're working, when it comes to the price reduction conversation, they know you've done everything. So you can only really be the price for their property because you've done the kitchen sink at it over the last 2-3 weeks or so. Now, if we go on the other side of the coin, let's say you've got terrible communication with the sellers you work with and you phone up after 3 weeks and say, hey, it's Chris, your estate agent. And they go, who? And you're like, yeah, the estate agent trying to sell your property. You've got a far harder battle to try and get that property sold because they probably just think you've been playing golf or out for walks or spending days at the beach rather than trying to sell your property. Now, the true story here is you could actually be doing the same amount of work as the other person is earlier. You're just not telling them about it. So therefore, that's why kind of getting across that message of how hard you're working every single week is absolutely crucial. Because if you don't, they just presume you've moved on to another property or you've forgotten about it or you're on holiday, anything apart from trying to sell their home. So if you get that across, actually when it comes to a price structuring conversation, it's quite an organic conversation because they know exactly how hard you've been working. Okay, last one, and this one is quite a biggie in the grand scheme of things. How to get more valuations. I mean, this is literally, I could write a book or two all about this topic. So I'll give you the short version if that's okay. So there's three things I would look at in a estate agency business from day one. Number one is the pricing of your stock correct. So this is the biggest return on investment you can do. You spend loads of time, effort, money getting properties on the market, making sure they're correctly priced and correctly presented. You can sell a property that wasn't previously looking at selling just by changing the price. Now, that's a fantastic return on investment for you for your time. So if you spend 2-3 hours phoning all your homeowners, yes, it might be a bit of a pain in the backside, not the most exciting job that week, but actually if you get 2 or 3 price reductions off the back of it and you sell one of those properties, hey, high five. You just got paid 10 grand for a couple of hours worth of work, which is not a bad result. I think you'll agree. So first step is go through your property stock and make sure it's correctly priced and correctly presented. Once you've done that, the next thing you do is leverage the properties you've got for sale, sold and completing. This is why we did step one first of all, because hopefully some of those properties are going to go under offer and it means there's more stuff for us to leverage at step two. So the question I would ask anybody in this situation is, if I live next door to one of the properties you've got for sale, under offer or completed, what would I know about you selling my next door neighbour's house? And I'm hoping the answer would be things like boards going up. I would hope leaflets in the local area. I'd hope letters going out for buyers you've got who missed out on that property, social media posts, lots of marketing going out. So although you may not be the biggest agent in town, when you do list, sell or complete a property, you can make sure you drop a nuclear bomb of marketing in that local area so everyone knows exactly what's going on with it. And the third step is leveraging your buyers. So if you've got properties for sale at the moment or under offer, you've either got buyers that are looking at that property that didn't want to go for it. Great. How can we leverage them in the local area? And the other thing, if you've sold a property recently, you may or may not have had multiple offers on that property. So therefore, you've got motivated buyers who want to look in the local area. So we can leverage those people. And there's generally 3 big ways of doing that. Step one is a social media video. Nice and easy. I'm out in so-and-so area today. I've got Mrs. Jones. She missed out on a property with me recently. She's looking for a family home in this area with a big garden. She's got 2 dogs and a kid. Am I expecting you to get anything off the back of that? No, but it's going to support the next step, which is VIP letters, which is where you send letters out to all the homeowners in those local streets to say, I've got Mrs. Jones. She's in rented at the moment. She's got 2 dogs and a kid. Wants them in your local area because she wants a family home close to the school. Great. Conversion rate for those is about 1 in 250. So if you're doing a couple and expecting a phone call back, don't hold your breath. And the final thing we look at doing is doing a specific withdrawn search. This is where we get properties that used to be on the market in those streets we're looking for. We show it to those buyers and say, hey, here's properties that used to be on the market in those streets. Which ones, if I could get you viewings on them, would you go and have a look at? And they'll be like, oh, I like the one with the red front door, the blue front door, the yellow front door. Great, leave it with me. I'll drop letters around their properties saying I've literally got a viewing for your property this weekend. Are you up for it? And those are the big 3 steps I'll go through. So first steps, price reductions on your stock, get them listed correctly, get some of those sold. Next step, have you leveraged around your properties correctly that you've got for sale, under offer and completed? And then final part, leverage your buyers you've got looking within your business. And that's going to fall into one of 3 camps: social media posts, VIP letters, and also specific withdrawn search as well. Okay, so those were a couple of the questions that we had asked off the back of our free webinar a while ago. Hopefully they helped you in your own estate agency business. I know generally speaking, if one person asks a question, there's usually 100 people behind them who want to know the same answer. If you'd like more ways to get more properties sold, listed in your estate agency business, you can download a free copy of my best-selling book, Your First £100,000 Estate Agency. All you need to do, pop over onto our Instagram account and DM us the word book, and that'll come straight across to yourself. I'll catch you on the next video.